Dan RadioStyle, hope everybody out there is having themselves a great day. One of the big concerns a lot of us have in the manifesting world is whether or not other people are going to affect what we're trying to manifest, what we're trying to create. And sometimes we'll get in relationships and maybe our person that we're with or our friend that we're hanging out with starts talking about something negative. And we're like, whoa, la, 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 I can't hear negative. It'll make negative things happen. Blah. And we'll blame other people for activating things inside of us. First off, nothing happens by accident. Rule one, just seriously, rule one. Just go with that rule. 99.9% of the time, it's probably going to serve you very, very, very well. Secondly, they are the us pushed out thing. Anyway, we're projecting. We're always looking for people to play parts in our movie. It's already activated if they're bringing it up. If they're bringing it up, it's already activated in you. Now, does that mean that you're destined to experience that? No, things are contrast frequently, often. We often will see contrast. There are things that are active in us that we don't necessarily think about much or often, and sometimes it'll pop up. And you ever have that experience where you're like, oh man, I mean, I hate to say it, but thank God that's not where I'm at right now. Or sometimes why some of us like to watch reality TV or the old Springer show back in the day. Jerry Springer was notorious for having the craziest Walmart type people on there. And no offense if you shop at Walmart, but if you've ever seen the photos of the crazy Walmart people, you know, like dudes wearing Batman and women's underwear, like there's some very strange people in the world. And apparently they shop at Walmart frequently. I did not know this, but that's where a lot of those photos come from. So worrying about what other people are bringing to the table is already too late. You've already missed the boat. And so again, if it's a contrast thing, accept it as contrast and be like, yes, I'm glad I don't experience that. I'm glad that's not happening to me. But a comment came the other day, and this really hit me in a very interesting way. One, because it pointed out to me, and this has been, I think, some of my recent frustration, is that I felt like, man, like I really want to help people. I want to help the masses, as many as I can. People realize that, oh my God, my choices, the choices I make, the things I think about, the things I focus on are what I'm creating in my own local life. And then on top of that, the things I think about from a bit of a larger perspective. Maybe my local water company is doing something strange, or maybe they're doing something good, whatever. But I'm thinking about maybe some of my more local things, the school, maybe like the school's doing a book fair, and I'm thinking about that, right? You can think about local things, right? And then you're putting energy towards that, and you can either think about how the school's doing a book fair and how that's awesome, or how the school's teaching your children weird, crazy stuff, and so that's awesome, or not awesome, right? And that's a problem. And then we've got layers to the cities, states, and up to countries and the world. That was one of the reasons why I supported that big world meditation that was back on April 4th and 5th. But the concept, or the thing that really hit me, and this gentleman, I commented on your thing. I'm sorry, I don't remember this person's name. But the thing that really hit me is I can't control anybody. The whole concept of you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. To the point of having people in our lives saying stuff. You can't force them to do anything. Can't. What you realize is that we all have the choice ourselves. We have the choice to choose what we're going to focus on, what we're going to think about, what we're going to change, what we're going to do, what we're going to see. And I know some of you are like, wait, huh? Like, I don't get what you're saying. There's all this crazy going around, right? We've got all sorts of health issues happening right now. We've got a lot of crazy stuff politically, certainly in this country, happening right now. Got a lot of really, really troubled, separated, scared, everything folks. And you guys are going, well, what are you talking about? I can see what I choose to see? Yes. One of the funny things about a half full, half empty, glass half full, glass half empty kind of concept for a lot of people is you can look at something bad and see the good in it. Or you can look at something good and see the bad. Or you can look at something and just see whatever you see. Doesn't have to be good or bad relative to what you're looking at. I mean, I could be looking at the bad and think about the bad, and I'm going to continue to see bad. And this is the thing that I started to realize, and this was what the comment was, that people are choosing the experiences they're having. And I'm like, well, that's totally true. That's law of attraction. Everyone's on board there. But what I realized is all the crazy that's going on right now is an experience that each individual is having. Now, collectively, it adds up. And on the other side, contrast, like a lot of people, are also on the other side of the spectrum. So for every place where someone's maybe seeing rose and everything's great and life's wonderful, there's someone on the other side of the spectrum that just sees doom and gloom and how everything's falling apart. Again, choices. Now, again, one of the funny things that's awesome about choices in all of our lives, and this is true with manifesting, I'm trying to paint a broad brush, metaphoric kind of understanding here. But what we focus on, what we think about, what we hold as true, what we pay attention to internally is what we create externally. Now, create is sort of a funny word. It's not that you're necessarily creating it. Just because you saw a homeless person doesn't necessarily mean you created that homeless person, but you saw them, you experienced them. You experienced them, maybe that homeless person's been sitting there every single day, but you just don't typically notice. You either walk by, you're on the other side of the street, however it plays out. Maybe their timing's just they haven't come around the corner yet from their whatever, That's how it works. All of this stuff is around us right now. The good, the bad, the glass half full, the glass half empty, all of it is around us right now. Our thoughts and visions and feelings and whatever all come from our up here, like what I focus on, what I choose to think about. And then based off of what I'm focusing on, it's essentially the filter I place on my life. And so whatever I decide I'd like to see more of, like I'm going to study up on how schools are horrible. And all of a sudden you're going to find all this stuff about how schools are horrible. And if you read enough of that, you'll actually be like, oh my God, schools are the worst thing ever. And the converse of that, I could go, I want to read up on how awesome schools are and some of the great programs they're doing to help children. And I'll find a gob of stuff showing how schools are awesome, and maybe the lunchtime programs or this and that, and the reading programs and arts and all this crazy cool stuff. It's like, oh my God, there's so much great stuff that schools are doing. Oddly, schools do both. We are so fixated, so polarized, so oddly in a weird place right now that you're either one way or the other. And what this is doing, I feel, is it's kind of creating a divide. I kind of think, I don't know, this is my theory right now anyway, I kind of think there's sort of a divide that's beginning to happen on the glass half full versus the glass half empty people. It's like taking a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, and you're actually peeling the bread apart, right? And the little bits that stick in the middle as you're peeling it apart, and most of the peanut butter ends up over there, and most of the jelly ends up over there, but a little commingling happens, doesn't it? And I feel like that's kind of what's happening with society. We're peeling apart. And oddly, and this is the thing where I was like, we've got to stop this, we've got to unite. But I realized that a lot of the spiritual stuff that I've been following for years is that transitions are upon us, that things are changing. The world's changing. Actual Earth is changing from a consciousness standpoint, from a density standpoint on our planet. That we, as human souls, are about to go through a harvest, a graduation, a changing over to the next year, if you will, the next turning of the wheel. So there's a major change that's happening, and I realized that's actually what's occurring right now. We're choosing which side of this equation we're ultimately going to end up on. Now, it's not a right or a wrong. It's not a good or a bad. It's not a heaven or hell. It's nothing like that at all. In fact, I think that's one of the biggest misunderstandings. But what it is it's either a graduation or it's I'm getting held back a year. I think that's probably a fair way to look at it. You're not a failure. You didn't totally blow it, and you get a chance to do it again. No big deal. You're a year older, and you'll be a year wiser when you do it again. So this next time, it'll be a lot easier if you're still kind of on the side that's just having a hard time ever seeing the positive in life, ever having the ability to focus on the things you desire rather than focus on the things you're afraid of. There's a lot of us that seem to have a hard time choosing, or first, step back, hard time accepting the fact that we choose what we experience, and then on top of that, having a hard time choosing a more positive experience. You know, whether or not you're living in your head and nothing's real and all that stuff, I don't know. I've been doing it a lot and literally can walk around and be like, people can tell me like crazy stuff they're experiencing. And I'm like, wow, that's so weird. Like I have never, ever seen that. Doesn't mean it's not true, but what it does mean is my world doesn't contain that. Even after they've said it, even after they've talked about it, I'm still not experiencing it. It's contrast. It's like, wow, I guess I could see how some people might do that. There's a lot of crazy going on right now, but this crazy that's going on is by choice. People are choosing to experience things. They're choosing to focus on things. They're choosing to get caught up in emotions within themselves that are either good or bad. Up or down, plus or minus, really, what is it? If it's working towards making your life better, if you're finding that you're spending more time happier, probably benefiting you. If you find that you're grumpy and frustrated most of the time, I would say you're probably on the glass half empty, and all you're seeing around you is misery. And I know a lot of you are like, well, with this and happening and this and this and this, how could you possibly see any good in the world? Again, proves my point. The question itself is a question that comes from negative thinking, a question that comes from a glass is half empty. The question comes from a reality that's different from mine. It comes from a reality that's not real to me. It is to you. Just as my reality is real to me, but might not be real to you. What's the difference between you and I? I tend to see a half full. My bird died when I was younger. It was very sad. I was out of town. I loved this bird. This bird was my best friend. Loved this bird. Twit was his name. Awesome bird. Great bird. I said all sorts of cool stuff. Sit on my shoulder, he'd chew on my necklace, and he'd dance. Like I'd listen to music and play solitaire, and he'd say, it was just good times. Anyway, he died while I was out of town visiting family, and, got the phone call, Twit died. It's like, that sucks. First thing I said to myself, at least you'll save some money on bird seed. Now, granted, I didn't make it any easier, but it's just my natural tendency to shift towards there's some shade of positive in this. There's always hope. There's always a positive. There's always a better way. I believe it. I know it. I experience it. You know why? Because that's what I think. That's what I believe. That's what's going on inside of me. I don't entertain thoughts of failure. I don't. Even if I have to transition direction, I don't call it failure. I call it learning. I call it, that approach didn't work. I'm going to try something different. A lot of people would go, I failed. No, but that's the difference. That's what I realized. That's what this gentleman that left a comment, I think it was a guy, left a comment. That's what he helped me with. And thank you very much. We choose what we experience. We choose what we have. We choose every single moment by what we're going to think about, by what we're curious about, by the questions we ask inside our own heads. Every single navigational step we consciously make, or sometimes unconsciously, every one of those steps, every single one of them is your choice to experience. Period. There's no, I do law of attraction, and then for the rest of the day, I'll just do regular. No, law of attraction's 100% on. There's no off switch. No off switch. There's no way to turn it on. It's always 100% on. Always. There's no way around it. That's how we manifest. That's how we experience this reality. That's the secret that everyone called in the book. The secret. It's shh. It's the most known secret that no one wants to believe. It's like magic to a lot of people, but it's frankly just how it is. You pay enough attention to what you think and feel, you'll start to see what you experience. Do you want a different world? Do you want a different city, different state, different reality, different house, different life, different anything? Inside yourself is where you look. Inside yourself is where the choice needs to be made. Inside yourself is where you will find salvation to your experience. If you like what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing. If you find that what you're doing is not quite good, you're not happy, you're not enjoying yourself, shift what's going on inside of you, and outside of you will change immediately. It sounds simple, kind of is, but it does take a conscious effort. That's where a lot of people find that it's not so simple. Yeah, you consciously have to do that. That is the whole point of being alive, is learning to focus our thoughts. This is preschool for evolution spiritually. We have to learn to control our thoughts, or we are not allowed to graduate where we can do damage with our thoughts. We have to learn to control our thoughts and feelings. That is what this playground's all about. And maybe you get held back 1 year. It's okay. It's okay. We'll get held back 1 year. Maybe you graduate and we'll check out the next step together. It's okay. I love you guys. I want you to seriously think about what I've talked about. Think about what you would like to experience. And think about whether or not what you've been doing works for that. Whenever I coach anyone, that is the question I always ask. What are you trying to do? Question 1. All right, what are you doing? Question 2. Do they work together or no? That's coaching. Done. People try to make it more complex. People try to just lay out a foundation. Hey, you got to do this and that. It's always us push that, blah, blah, blah. No, look, ask questions. You can't just broad stroke everything. It's very important to remember we control what we experience. We control what we see. We control where we are at any given space and time. By our decisions, talk about being at the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the right time. That's our choices that lead us to that. Did we make the wrong left turn and somehow miss an accident? It happens a lot. Did we somehow not make that turn and get into an accident? That also happens. Those decisions are all made in our minds well before the event transpires. Dan, RadioStyle.